Hello and welcome back to the third rail. We have a new addition to the collection this week. I just received this little V200. It was cheap and I thought we should have a first look at it together and see how bad it is. We'll start with a quick model overview. This is Märklin 3021, which I think does not need any introduction really. It was produced for a very long 32 years, sold by the millions, and is often referred to as the VW Beetle of model railways. Between 1957 and 1989, the tooling remained virtually unchanged, but the model received many mild cosmetic updates so that there is a total of 13 recorded versions. I won't cover all versions here, but I'd say that the production can be divided into 4 phases. First, the early years between 1957 and 1960, during which 5 versions were released with running number V200 006 and a long Deutsche Bundesbahn banner on the sides of the model. The driving wheels were fitted with plastic tires. Decals were used for the inscriptions on the frame. During that time, the tooling was adjusted a couple of times, going from 2 to 3 headlights on the cabs, and the side vents were filled at some point. The shape of the painted stripes changed a couple of times too during that time. The next phase covered the 1960s, with 6 versions released between 1961 and 1970. During that time, running numbers alternated between V200 027 and V200 056. The Deutsche Bundesbahn logo was introduced, on the cab faces at first, then on the sides as the long Deutsche Bundesbahn banners disappeared. In 1962, the plastic traction tires were replaced with rubber tires, and in the mid-1960s, Märklin started using pad printing instead of decals for the inscriptions on the sides of the frame. Then came the 1970s, the third phase, with version 12, the longest running version. Cosmetically, it was identical with the last 1960s version, but it had a new running number, V200 060. Note that the catalogues only reflected this change from 1979 onwards, when photos replaced drawings in the catalogues. This version remained in production until 1984. Some unsold stock was also sold in 1989. This model was replaced in 1985 by the 13th and final version. All cast numbers and logos were removed to make way for printed ones. The running number was finally changed to a post-1968 format, V220 043-4. The 3021 was discontinued in 1989. Between 1959 and 1970, the 3021 was also sold as a kit under model number 3921. The kit version was cosmetically identical to the fully assembled version available in the catalogues at the time. A way to identify them is to look inside, where you'll usually find the reverser and motor bogie wires are attached to each other with plugs. The 3021 was also included in boxed sets 3121 and 3122, and a simplified version was also sold under the Primex brand with reference number 3009. Now let's go over a few vital statistics as usual. The model measures 21 cm buffer to buffer. The chassis is made of sheet metal and the body is zinc die-cast. The model is fitted with an electromechanical reverser that controls a large 3-pole motor It's also known as an LFCM motor in Märklin lingo, driving 2 axles fitted with 4 traction tires. Looking at the cab area, we have 3 non-directional headlights, so always on, and a hook coupler with pre-uncoupler. This applies to both cabs, of course. Now it's time for a high-level overview of the prototype for context. Very briefly this time, as the class will be known to most of you, I'm pretty sure. Our model represents a class V200 of the Deutsche Bundesbahn. The class was developed by Krauss Maffei, yes, them again, to replace heavy steam engines on fast passenger services. The locomotive took care of most prestige services before the electrification of the German railway network, and it certainly looked the part with its striking new design for the time. The V200 was a diesel hydraulic locomotive with a maximum speed of 140 km per hour. The locomotive was fitted with 2 Maybach V12 engines developing up to 1100 horsepower. 86 units of the class were built between 1953 and 1959. Krauss Maffei built the first 5 prototypes. MAK, or Maschinenbau Kiel, manufactured the first 20 production units, numbered V200 006 to V200 025. Then Krauss Maffei built the remaining units from running number V200 026 to V200 086. This batch was fitted with 1100 horsepower engines, and from V200 056 onwards, the locomotives were delivered with Deutsche Bundesbahn logos only. The livery of earlier examples was adjusted as part of the maintenance cycle later on in the mid-1960s. The class spent about a decade on Germany's main lines, and during the 1960s, heavier trains and the progress of electrification progressively saw the class redeployed to short-distance passenger and freight services. In 1968, the class was renumbered to V220. In 1977, all engines were concentrated in depots across the north of Germany, where they remained until the withdrawal of the final unit in 1984. This completes the overview. You'll find links to information as well as credits for the photo material used today in the video description as usual. Now let's have a look at my 3021. I mentioned VW Beetle earlier, and the analogy also applies to the condition of 3021s available today. Supply is plentiful, but online shops and auction sites are littered with overpriced and often battered models. Additionally, because of its simplicity and the ample amount of internal space, this model is often the one on which people first try their hand at digital conversions. As a result, it can be quite difficult to find an example in good original condition, which is what I'm looking for usually. This model was advertised as used in good condition. It was very cheap. I paid 39 euros, actually 44 euros if you include the shipping, which I think is not bad at all. The pictures looked okay, so I was very intrigued by the low price. Let's see what it has in store for us. We'll start by looking at the box. As we can see, it is not the best one, but it's the correct one, it's all intact, and it still does its job. I have seen worse. Right, let's get the model out. Well, that doesn't look too bad. Sadly, there are no instructions in the box though, It's a shame. This would have been nice, but it's not a major thing. So let me put the model on a presentation rail so we can have a closer look. And there we are. Well, the first impression is very good indeed. This is a version 12, produced sometime between 1970 and 1984. The paint seems to be in good order. The numbers are all readable on that side, so that's good. Looking around, everything seems to be in good shape. There's no scratches anywhere. The pinstriping and cast numbers were painted in freehand at the time, so the finish on all 3021s is always a bit crude in places, and no 3021 is the same in this respect. The handlebars are a bit tarnished, but that can be fixed. So far it's not bad at all. Ah, not quite. I think we have found the reason for the low price. There is a nice black spot on the front of this cab. I hadn't seen this on the pictures. Oh well. It looks like the paint has rubbed off and some primer is showing through now. Ah, that's such a shame. Okay, let's carry on. Quick look at the roof. There we find no problem whatsoever. Now the chassis. Well, the model has been used, obviously. The pickup shoe will need some attention. And we have a nice touch for the collection. This model has a serial number. These were only introduced in 1981, so this locomotive was made after that, and it was made in 1982 to be precise. So it's a perfect match for the collection. So, in summary, it's such a shame that I missed the paint defect. It was cheap for a reason after all. But we can still move to the layout and see how this model behaves on the track. And there we are. So let me rail the model. We'll get you a bit closer too. That's it. Sorry about the focus at that stage, it gets better. Right, time for some power. What's happening? Ah, didn't rail it properly. Surprise, surprise. Let me fix that. Okay, much better. The reverser is operational and we have motion. We have lighting at the front, but not at the back. And the logo feels a bit sluggish. Okay, let's have a look inside. So I'll take the body off. And everything looks original, apart from the bit of yellow wire used for repair at the front at some point. What a relief, it wasn't messed with. Very good. Now, let's look at the lighting situation. Let me test the bulb. Yep, it's dead. So I'll put a new one in. Quick check before I install it. Yeah, it works. I'll fit it quickly. Now let's test. That bit is fixed. Now, let me look at the motor bogie. We have loose traction tires. That would explain a bit of the sluggishness. Let me check the motor. The armature is fine, but the inside of the motor plate is quite grimy. I'll clean that quickly. Now I'll check the axles. They're not feeling as free as I'd like. That would explain another bit of the sluggishness. So I'll give the motor bogie a few squirts of WD-40 to free things up and get rid of some of the old grease. And then I'll wipe it dry and remove the bits of debris and fluff released in the process. I'll fit some new tires. Reassemble the motor, put the brushes back in, and I'll do a bit of lubrication. quick function test, and that bit is now fine. Now I wanted to refurbish the pickup shoe, but upon closer inspection it's not in a good shape, so I'll fit a new one simply. I'll give the wheels on that bogie a gentle scrub too. That's it, the chassis is now done. Now let's look at the body. First, the black mark on the cap face. Upon closer inspection it looks like a bit of dried grease. So I'm going to try a bit of WD-40 on a cotton bud to see if that helps. Well, look at that! The mark is gone. Looks like I had a lucky escape. So I clean the rest of the body with WD-40. I am doing this very gently without scrubbing, to only remove superficial deposits without damaging the paint, especially on the silver markings and logos. And then I'll go over the body with a dry cotton bud to remove as much excess WD-40 as possible. And with all that done, I can reassemble the locomotive. And look at this beauty! All shiny, even the handlebars, even if they need a bit more attention. I send it for a run-in now. Oh, the red livery really pops out now. Beautiful. No problem anywhere. So I'm going to get a few coaches while the locomotive is finishing its few rounds. So in its last days the locomotive would have been ferrying commuters in the Lübeck area. So I got a few Zilberling coaches out. We've got one first class, that's a 4158, and two second class coaches. We've got a 4159 and a 4256. I really need to get more of these at some point. So let's couple the locomotive. And we'll send the train straight to the main line. Throttle setting 100. Look at that. Very nice. Absolutely no hesitation anywhere. Now we're approaching the bridge. Effortless. So we'll have a second round for fun, with a lower speed setting this time, and I'll remain completely stumm for this one. Well, it all worked out in the end. Cheap doesn't always mean bad. Incredible what a bit of oil and time can achieve. I can definitely say I backed a bargain, and that's always nice as a collector. That was it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully enough for you to give it a like and maybe even subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks as ever for your support, and bye for now.